It was a normal night, one of those quiet ones. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone with the TV playing something I wasn't even watching. My wife was in the kitchen, humming while making tea, like everything was fine. There was nothing special about the day, just calm, simple routine. My phone buzzed, a message from the family group chat. I didn't think much of it. That group was always active. Memes, little updates, sometimes someone asking for a recipe, or sharing pictures of their dog. I opened it without a second thought, expecting something harmless. At first, it was exactly that. My cousin shared a funny video. My aunt responded with a laughing emoji. My brother added a photo of his new car. I scrolled, smiled a little, kept going. Then I saw it, a message from my wife, right there in the middle of all the usual chatter. But it wasn't for the group. It was long, detailed, and full of things no one in their right mind would say to their in-laws, cousins, or siblings. It started with, God, I still can't stop thinking about this weekend. That man had me in ways Robert never could. I stopped breathing. I stared at the screen. I thought I was reading it wrong. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was part of some weird story she was sharing. But the more I read, the more my stomach dropped. She wrote about how wild it was, how she hadn't felt that alive in years, how she was already planning the next time. She used words I never imagined she'd even say out loud, let alone type. It wasn't for me, and it wasn't for the family group chat. It was meant for someone else entirely. But now everyone had seen it. The group chat went completely silent. No one replied. No laughing emojis. No follow-ups. Just quiet. It was like the whole digital room froze at once. I felt dizzy. My hands were still holding the phone, but it felt like it wasn't even mine anymore. My heart was pounding so loud I couldn't hear the TV anymore. I looked over at her. She was sipping tea like nothing had happened, like she didn't just blow up our entire life with one message. I looked back at the phone. The message was still there. No one had deleted anything yet. No one had said a word. She didn't know what she had done, not yet. I didn't say anything either. I just sat there, phone in hand, completely frozen. My mind was blank, but my chest felt heavy. I knew in that moment everything had changed, just like that. One wrong message, one truth slipped out. And now I could never unsee it. Maybe it was a mistake. That was the first thought that came into my head. I stared at the message again and again, thinking maybe I read it wrong. Maybe it meant something else. Maybe she was joking, trying to be funny in some strange way. I kept rereading it, looking for a sign that it wasn't what it looked like. But the words didn't change. Every time I looked, it still said the same thing. She was talking about another man, talking about what he did with her, talking about how it felt better than anything she'd ever had with me. I sat there waiting, hoping she would realize her mistake, hoping she would grab her phone, gasp, and delete it before anyone else saw it. That's what I kept telling myself. Maybe she didn't mean to send it. Maybe she was copying and pasting something and hit the wrong chat. I stared at the screen like my eyes could erase what I saw. I hoped it would vanish like it never happened. Then my phone buzzed again. It was a message from my brother, but not in the group. He sent it privately. "You okay, man?" That's when it hit me. He saw it too. Everyone did. My cousins, my aunt, my parents, even her own sister. I didn't even know what to say. I didn't answer him. I just locked my phone and sat still. My heart was pounding. My thoughts were running wild. Maybe this was some nightmare. Maybe I was dreaming and would wake up any second. I glanced at my wife. She was sitting there laughing at the TV like nothing had happened, like she didn't just destroy everything with one message. I looked at her face, her calm expression, the way she sipped her tea like it was any other evening. No panic, no guilt, no rush to grab her phone. It made me sick. She had no idea what she'd done, or maybe she did and she didn't care. That was worse. I sat on the couch, still frozen, still hoping it wasn't real. But it was. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it. I didn't want to see what else people were saying. I didn't want to see the pity, the shock, the questions. I felt a mix of everything. Heartbreak, confusion, anger, all at once. I didn't know whether to scream or cry. I didn't know whether to confront her or walk out the door. All I knew was that everything I believed about my marriage was now full of cracks. The woman I loved had just shown a side of herself I never knew existed, And the worst part, she didn't even realize it yet. I waited until the kids were asleep. I didn't say a word all evening. I helped them brush their teeth, read the usual bedtime story, tucked them in like I always did. My heart felt heavy the whole time. I didn't want them to see anything. I didn't want to lose control in front of them. So I waited. I kept it together, barely. Once the house was quiet, I walked into the living room. She was still there, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened, like she didn't just turn our entire life into a joke. I sat down and looked at her. She looked back at me, confused. I asked her calmly, "What did you mean in that message?" She blinked, then looked down at her phone like she didn't know what I was talking about. She paused and said, "What message?" I didn't answer. I unlocked my phone, pulled up the screenshot, and handed it to her. Her face changed, all the color drained out. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She stared at it like it might disappear. "I didn't mean for you to see that," she whispered. That was all she said. Not sorry, not shocked, just that. Like the only problem was that I saw it. I felt something snap inside me. My hands were shaking. My voice came out louder than I expected. "So, you really did it?" She looked down again and nodded slowly. She wiped her face, tears already building. "I didn't plan it," she said. "It just happened." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had imagined all kinds of answers, but not that one. She tried to look sorry, but I could still hear her voice in that message. The way she bragged, the way she talked about it like it was the best thing that had ever happened to her. "Once?" I asked. "Just once?" She hesitated. "Yes, just one time. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go that far." I shook my head. I remembered the message word for word, the way she talked about how alive she felt, how he touched her, how she wanted more. "Mistake?" I said. "You were proud of it." "I wasn't thinking," she said. "I was venting. I didn't mean what I wrote like that." But I'd seen it. The way she told the story, the words she used. That wasn't venting. That was someone showing off. "I've been right here this whole time," I said, "trying, believing in us. And this is what I get?" She didn't answer. Tears ran down her face, but they didn't move me. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel anything except hurt. Not just because she cheated, but because she didn't even seem that sorry. That hurt more than anything. I didn't let it go. I wanted answers, real ones. No more lies, no more soft excuses. I looked at her and asked again, "How long has this been going on?" She didn't speak at first, just looked down at her hands. I waited. She finally whispered, "A few months." I felt like the air had been punched out of my chest. A few months. Not a one-time thing, not a mistake. This wasn't a slip-up. This was something she chose to do. Again and again. "Who is it?" I asked. She hesitated again, then finally said, "He works with me." We started talking after meetings. It was nothing at first, just friendly conversations. I closed my eyes for a second. I already knew the name. I had seen her laugh at his messages before. I had seen his name pop up when she left her phone face up by mistake. I didn't think anything of it then. She always said it was work stuff, deadlines, office stress. Now I knew what those late nights at the office really were. I asked her if it started during those weeks. She kept saying she had to work overtime. She nodded, said they stayed back after the others left, talked, had coffee. Then one day it just happened. She said they kissed first, then it got physical, then they started meeting outside of work, hotels, lunch breaks. Days I thought she was just out shopping or visiting her sister. It all started adding up. The nights she came home late, the times she was distant, the way she stopped holding my hand, the way she looked at me like I was a stranger. I used to think it was stress or something I did wrong. I even blamed myself for her mood swings. She kept talking, saying it was never serious, saying she didn't love him, saying it was just a phase. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, that she didn't know how to stop once it started. I didn't believe a word of it. She had 100 chances to stop. She could have said no. She could have walked away. She didn't. She kept choosing him. I wasn't even angry anymore, just empty. I stared at her, still talking, still trying to explain things like that would somehow make it better. Like understanding it would undo it. "I thought we were okay," I said quietly. She looked at me like she didn't understand. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were okay, I repeated. She didn't say anything, just looked away. That silence told me everything. We hadn't been okay for a long time, I just didn't see it. Or maybe I didn't want to. I walked out of the house without saying anything. My head was spinning, my chest felt heavy. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to breathe. I needed to get away from her, from that room, from the sound of her voice trying to explain what couldn't be explained. I got in the car and sat there in silence. I didn't start the engine. I didn't even move. I just sat there staring at the dashboard, letting the weight of everything crash down on me. My eyes burned. I tried to hold it in, but I couldn't. I cried hard. Not because she cheated, not even because our marriage was over. I cried because I was lied to by someone I trusted with everything, lied to for months while I was doing everything I could to hold things together. I thought about our wedding, the vows, the promises we made in front of everyone. I thought about the way she looked at me that day, smiling like I was the only one in the world. I thought about the first time we held hands, the nights we stayed up talking about our future, the plans we made. All of it felt like a joke now, a memory that didn't mean anything anymore. I felt stupid, like a fool. I kept asking myself how I didn't see it. How could I be so blind? How did I miss all the signs? Was I really that easy to lie to? Or did I just ignore the truth because I didn't want to believe it? My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I did. More messages from family. We're here for you. Sorry, bro, that was rough. I can't believe she did that. Everyone knew now. They saw it. Not from me. Not because I said anything, but because she sent the message herself. The whole group chat saw her talk about another man like he was something special, like I never mattered. My family found out before I could even say a word. My story was taken from me. She exposed me without even meaning to. I never got to explain what was going on. I didn't get to speak first. I didn't get the chance to say, I'm hurt, I'm struggling, she betrayed me. She told her side without knowing, and in doing that, she told the worst part of mine. The pain wasn't just in what she did, it was in how it all came out. Public, ugly, unfiltered, no warning. 1 second I was just scrolling through my phone. The next, my whole life changed in front of an audience. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. I felt hollow. This wasn't how I pictured our story ending. I always thought if things got bad, we'd talk, maybe fight, maybe cry. But not this, not like this. I didn't speak to her for days. I couldn't. Every time I looked at her, all I saw was the message. All I heard was her voice in my head bragging about someone else. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I just went quiet. I moved around the house like a ghost. I ate in silence, slept in silence, and kept my distance. She noticed, of course she did. She started trying, making small talk, cooking meals I liked, asking how my day was. I gave short answers or no answers at all. I wasn't trying to punish her, I was just numb. Every word she said felt fake. Every smile looked forced. She told me she ended things with him, said she blocked his number, told me she wanted to fix what we had, that she still loved me, that she was sorry, but none of that mattered anymore. I couldn't unsee what I saw. I couldn't unhear the way she wrote about him, the way she laughed in that message like she was proud of it. There was no regret in her words, only excitement. She talked about him like he was some prize, like I was nothing in comparison. Now suddenly she wanted to act like she cared. I started thinking back, really thinking, all the nights she turned away from me in bed, the times I tried to hold her hand and she pulled away, the moments I told her I loved her and she just nodded. I thought she was tired. I thought maybe it was stress or work. But now I knew. She had already left me in her heart. She had pulled away a long time ago. I was the only one still trying. I remembered how many times I asked her if everything was okay, how I offered to take her on a weekend trip just to reconnect, how I suggested counseling when we had those little fights. She always said no, always told me we were fine. I believed her. Now I realized she was done long before I even knew something was wrong. She had already disconnected, emotionally, physically, all of it. I was still holding on, still hoping, still fighting for something she had already walked away from. And it hurt. More than the cheating, more than the lies. What hurt most was knowing she let go without telling me. Like I didn't deserve to know. Like I didn't deserve the truth. I gave her everything I had, and it still wasn't enough. I kept asking myself one question. Was I that easy to leave? Was I that forgettable? That replaceable? I looked at her one morning while she was pouring coffee and I didn't feel anything. No hate, no love, just emptiness. That was the moment I knew. There was no going back. Whatever we had was gone, and I was done being the only one trying. After everything happened, word started spreading. I didn't tell anyone, but the message she sent in the family group chat had already done the damage. People knew. Some stayed quiet, some reached out, and some started talking behind our backs. It didn't take long before friends started picking sides. My friends, the ones who knew me well, messaged me first. They said things like, "I'm sorry, man," or "You didn't deserve that." Some of them even came over, brought food, or just sat with me in silence. They didn't ask too many questions. They didn't need to. They could see it in my face. They knew I was hurting. Her friends were different. At first, they didn't say anything. A few of them unfollowed me online. One even blocked me. I didn't know why. I hadn't done anything wrong. I wasn't the one who cheated. I wasn't the one bragging about someone else in front of the whole family. Still, they treated me like I was the problem. One of her closest friends messaged me out of nowhere. Her tone was cold. She said, "I don't know what happened between you two, but maybe you should look at yourself too." Maybe she wouldn't have looked elsewhere if you had made her feel wanted. That made my blood boil. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. I typed and deleted my words 3 times. Then I finally wrote, "So you're saying I deserved this?" She didn't answer. I couldn't believe it. I was the one who was lied to. I was the one who stayed loyal. I was the one who kept trying while she slipped away behind my back. And now I was being told I was part of the reason, that somehow her betrayal was my fault. That was the moment I realized how quickly people choose sides. Not based on truth, but on who they're closer to. It didn't matter who was right or wrong. It mattered who they believed, who they wanted to defend. And I was alone in that fight. She went quiet during all this. No calls to family, no texts in the group chat. She vanished. While I sat in the middle of the wreckage, she disappeared like nothing happened. Her silence made it worse. People were left guessing, filling in the blanks with their own versions of the story. Some said they were shocked. Others said they saw it coming. One cousin even said, "I always thought something was off with her lately." I didn't respond to most of the messages. I didn't want to talk anymore. I was tired. Tired of defending myself. Tired of trying to make sense of something that made no sense. I just wanted peace. But even that felt hard to find when everyone had something to say. I started thinking maybe I should stay, maybe for the kids. They didn't know anything. They still ran into the room calling mommy and daddy like nothing had changed. They still laughed at cartoons, asked for bedtime stories, and left toys everywhere. Like I didn't want to break their little world. I didn't want to be the reason they cried or asked questions they were too young to understand. I told myself I could take it, that maybe with time I'd feel different, that maybe things could go back to the way they were. I thought if I stayed quiet, played along, acted normal, it wouldn't hurt so bad. But it still hurt. Every single day I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat right. Even when I smiled around the kids, I felt like I was lying. I talked to my brother, told him everything. He listened. Then he said one thing that stuck with me. "You're teaching them what love looks like. Be careful what they learn from this." I didn't say anything right away, but those words stayed with me. I kept thinking about it. If I stayed, what would they learn? That love means letting someone walk all over you. That marriage means pretending everything's fine when it's not. That being a father means keeping quiet even when you're broken inside. That hit hard. I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep living like this, not just for me, but for them too. I didn't want them to grow up thinking this was normal. I didn't want to wake up 10 years from now, still holding on to something that died the moment she sent that message. I sat her down. She knew something was coming. I could see it in her face. I told her I couldn't do it anymore, that I tried, that I thought about the kids, but I couldn't keep pretending. I told her it was over. She cried, begged, said she would change, promised to delete her social media, change jobs, go to therapy, anything. I listened, but I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not love, just silence inside. I told her it wasn't just about the cheating. It was about trust, about respect, about how she didn't even seem sorry until she got caught. I said the message didn't just break my heart. It broke my picture of her. The person I thought I married didn't exist anymore. She kept saying we could fix it, that we had too much history to throw away. But the truth was, the history didn't matter anymore, not when the present was full of pain. I stood up and said I was going to talk to a lawyer. She didn't stop me. I had made my decision. I was done. There was no going back. I packed my things and left the house. I didn't take much, just clothes, some personal stuff, and the few things that mattered to me. I found a small place to rent, nothing fancy, just quiet. At first it felt strange. No noise, no kids running around, no smell of coffee in the morning. Just silence. The first few nights were the hardest. I couldn't sleep properly. I kept thinking about everything. The house, the way the kids would run into my arms after work, the sound of their laughter, even her voice calling out from the kitchen, asking me if I wanted tea. I missed the routine. I missed the life we had, even if it wasn't real anymore. But in that silence, I also started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. Space, freedom. I could breathe. I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't have to walk on eggshells. I didn't have to share a bed with someone who had already given her heart to someone else. I started doing little things for myself. I made breakfast in the mornings. I went for walks. I called old friends. A few of them invited me out. I said yes. At first, I didn't feel like talking, but being around people who cared helped more than I expected. We laughed, talked about nothing important, and for a few hours I forgot about the pain. I started eating better, sleeping more. I even bought a plant. Something about keeping it alive made me feel like I was slowly coming back too. The pain didn't go away. It was still there, but it didn't crush me like before. It sat quietly in the background, reminding me of what I'd lost, but also of what I'd survived. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was my daughter. "Daddy," she said, her voice soft, "I miss you." That broke me. I told her I missed her too, more than she could understand. I told her I loved her and that I would see her soon. After the call ended, I sat there crying, but this time the tears weren't just from pain. They were from love, from knowing why I had to do this, from knowing I didn't walk away because I gave up. I walked away because I had to protect myself. And one day, I'd explain it all to her. I'd tell her the truth in a way she could understand. Every day after that, I reminded myself why I left. I reminded myself that I deserved respect, that love wasn't supposed to come with betrayal, that staying in a broken place just to feel normal wasn't really living. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And slowly I was becoming myself again. Time passed. Not quickly, not easily, but it passed. The pain didn't vanish overnight. It faded slowly, like the sound of a storm moving away. Some days were still hard. Some nights felt too long. But I wasn't stuck anymore. I had made it out of something that could have destroyed me. And for that, I was proud of myself. I started feeling normal again. Not like the person I used to be, but someone stronger. Someone who had been broken and put the pieces back together. Different pieces, a different shape, but still whole. I thought about the group chat sometimes, the way everything came crashing down because of one message. It used to haunt me. Now I saw it differently. That message saved me. It showed me a truth I was blind to, a truth I needed to face. If that message hadn't been sent, I might still be living in a lie, still holding on to someone who had already let me go. Looking back, I was thankful, not for the pain, but for the clarity. I had loved her, I had trusted her, and she broke that. But her mistake gave me a new chance at life, a chance to rebuild, to restart, to know my worth. I stopped blaming myself. It wasn't because I wasn't enough. It wasn't because I failed. She made her choice. She crossed a line. That was on her. I gave her loyalty, patience, and love. And when she threw it away, I learned something important. I learned that walking away doesn't make you weak. It means you finally understand what you deserve. I learned that peace is better than pretending. I learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means forgiving yourself for trusting someone who didn't value it. I also learned to pay attention, to protect my space, to guard my heart, not with walls, but with wisdom. I still believe in love. I still believe in loyalty. But now I know it should never come at the cost of my own peace. And if someone ever betrays me again, I won't break the same way. I won't beg for answers. I won't ask why I wasn't enough. I won't cry on the bathroom floor wondering what I did wrong. I'll walk away, Not because I don't care, but because I care about myself more now, because I know my worth, because I've already survived the worst and came out of it standing tall. And that's something no one can take from me again.